Hello everybody, Ruth Polston from The Life That Wins. Holy, holy, holy. That fits really well with what we're going to talk about today. It's taken from the Old Testament, and it's about one of the very, very strongest and most powerful man with the greatest revelations of anybody in the Old Testament, and that was Isaiah. Well, Isaiah was on his way to the temple one day. That was not unusual, but was very unusual when he got there. Now I'm going to call this today the low, the woe, and the go. So what does the woe have to do with it? Well, you never know what a day will bring. You may start it out one thing, and we live out our lives according to our perception of God. And that's always in a graduating. We go from level to level. We go from glory to glory, and we go from faith to faith. So we're always accelerating in this revelation. Well, this is what he had when he went to the temple. I don't know if there's anybody else in there, but just him and God. So no sooner did he open the door, those great big iron and copper iron doors, and he saw the Lord. And the Lord was high, 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 and lifted up almost to the ceiling. And he had a great big long train, like a wedding train, only it was royal. And it flowed, and it finally filled the whole temple floor. And he was just aghast. He'd never imagined that God would be something like that. So as he watched, right above them were some seraphims, which are angels, and each one had 6 wings, 2 of them, and each one, and the first, let's see, each one had 2 wings. It said, and they covered their face. They couldn't even stand to look at God. And then the next one, it said that they flew back and forth, and then they cried to each other, holy, holy, holy. That's what I played tonight, is the Lord of hosts. Well, by the time he saw this, I think he was probably just weak, and the Bible said he called himself undone. That's probably an Old Testament word. But he said, woe is me. When we begin to compare ourselves with the holiness of God, I think we'd probably say, woe is me too. But you know, he knew where to put the blame. And he said, I am a man of unclean lips. He knew where the problem was. and I dwell in the midst of people. They have unclean lips too. And you know, because he was so honest, one of these seraphims flew down, got a live coal, and took it down to where he was kneeling and applied it to his lips. And he said, Isaiah, your sin is purged. You are no longer a man of unclean lips. Well, that was a great weight off of him. Really didn't think about it much until he saw the Lord. And you know, that's kind of the way we are too. We could just be going along our mamby-pamby way until all of a sudden God shows up. And when he does, we know where to put the blame. We know where it is. The problem is, he knew right away it was out of his lips. He had come with unclean messages. So after he did that, he was clean. And he was so beside himself, the next thing he did was to say, why, he said, he heard the Lord again, and the Lord was talking. And he said, who will go for me? First of all, we have a low, saw the Lord. Then the very next one was, woe is me. And then the third one was, God said, you didn't think all this was for nothing, did you? No. Who will go? Well, by this time, Isaiah is so captured that he would, I don't know whether he thought there might be somebody in there or not, but he was just saying, here am I, here, look this way, Lord. Send me, send me. You know, the Bible says this, he orders our steps, but he doesn't tell us what's in the steps. I remember that when my husband passed away. He said, take one step and I'll be in the step. So that was almost a guarantee then. And he knew that when he stepped out to do with the will of the Lord, well then what was the will of the Lord going to be? Well, Israel had been in a terrible war with Assyria. The Babylonians hadn't come along yet, but Assyria had. And so when they came back from this war, and they had been triumphant, he said there were only a tenth left. But guess who was going to be their pastor? It was going to be Isaiah. So he lived all the way through those wonderful, wonderful, wonderful passages in Isaiah. Yeah, I'd love to read Isaiah. You know, I love it because he's always comparing God with us. And he says, he takes up the islands as a very little thing. And then he says, all the waters of the world he could put in the span of his hand, the cup of his hand. He said he has measured out, you know, the dust. Who is this God? I tell you, I have no words myself. I just know I know him. And the only way I know him is through his Son, Jesus Christ. Well, what are some of the things besides telling us the greatness of God? I would just like to tell you, 600, I think it was 600 and, I'll tell you just a minute, 690 years before Christ, he saw by prophecy exactly the way Jesus was going to be on the cross. Now, it was a shock to him And he said, who's going to believe this? Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? Who is this for? He said, he shall grow up before him as a tender plant and as a root out of a dry ground. He's talking about Jesus. He's never seen him. But he had a prophecy. And God used him to tell in such detail Christ on the cross. He goes on to say, and then when we would see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. Well, was Jesus beautiful on the cross? I don't think so. No. He goes on to say, yeah, now remember this is 690 years before he ever came. And he said, he is despised. Why would they despise him? He is rejected of men. He's a man of sorrows. He's acquainted with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he had borne our griefs, he had carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken. We said, he is smitten of God and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities, and the chastisement of our peace was upon him. Oh God, to think that somebody who walked into the temple one day, you never know what a day will bring you. He walked into the temple. He saw the Lord high and lifted up and said, lo, lo. And the next thing he said was, woe, woe is me. And the next thing he said was, who will go? I will. And we have the living proof right there. 690 years before Jesus came. Yes, he knew exactly what it was going to be like. Holy, holy. When you lay your head on your pillow, you shall have a low experience. And then I can't conceive that all of us wouldn't be able to come up with some woes. And then I trust that we'll say, I can't wait to get out of here. I have the goal, and I have to tell it. God bless, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. The Lord bless. Ruth and Polston, the Light the Winds.